What you're going to watch is a short clip of our 1 hour full podcast. What we have done is we have picked up one small topic of interest so that you can just focus on that particular topic. But you can still watch the full podcast at the screen. A link is given.
So, when you talk about human centered process optimization, so there are two terms, human centered and process optimization. So, if you can just explain these two terms for us.
So, if I talk about the process optimization, it is a process, right? It is a systematic approach where we work on the processes to make it more effective and efficient for the team. So, we try to remove the waste and automate the steps which are no longer needed so that the team can work in a desired fashion in an effective manner. So, if I talk about the human centered process, here we keep the users in mind, thinking about the users, their needs, understanding their pain points, trying to fix their needs based on what they need. And then here we are keeping the user in mind in every iteration and giving the outcomes or the solution what they are looking for.
Yeah. So, when you talk about human centered process optimization, in by nature, how is it different from the traditional as is and to be process design, which we or the optimization technique we use? What is the key difference between these two?
So in the process optimization, if we talk about, we are not thinking about the end user. We are just thinking about optimizing the process without even knowing who is the end user, right? We are heavily looking forward to refine our documents without even knowing that if it is going to help the user at all. And if I talk about human centered, we keep the human in process. While we work on the process, we look at how that process can help the user as well. So that is the key difference.
Okay, so before we move forward, there are a few more terms which I wanted to get clarification on. So there is process analysis, there's process modeling, and there is process optimization. So how they are different, or are they different?
Yes, so these are very important term when we talk about processes, right? And they are different in some way. So if I talk about process analysis is a process when we find out the current state of the project, what it is going on, right? What is the state of the project? We try to understand the pain points, the bottlenecks, the needs of the user here, and that is the goal. And if I talk about process modeling, here we try to visualize the project. We try to work on the BPMN diagram in the form of flowcharts. And then we try to understand the bottlenecks and the redundancies. So if I come to process optimization, so once the process analysis and process modeling is done, so we have the data from those two. So we try to make our process more effective and efficient. So it is helpful for the user, and how we can make it effective and optimize the process so it makes sense for the users.
Okay, so let's just rewind a bit and let's go back to first understand what is how the traditional process optimization is done and what are the steps involved.
Sure. So we talked about process optimization is a systematic approach where we just look for refining the process, how we can help the team and the users, right? So there are a couple of steps here, which is process identification. First, we identify what is the current state of the project, what it is going through, and we try to visualize the project so that we can create some flowcharts, maybe a simple whiteboard sketch or a BPMN diagram to understand the current state, and so it is shareable with the team. So they also get a clear picture. Then comes the data analysis. Right here, what we do is we try to get the metrics where we find the errors, the bottlenecks, and the pain points so that we know how to move forward and what to improve. Then, if I talk about we need to do the gap analysis, here we collect the gaps, the redundancies using a value metrics so that we can improve our process further. Then we look after we have a data from all three, right? This process identification, data analysis, and gap analysis. We'll try to prioritize the process based on the needs and the bottlenecks we got it from above. And once a process is prioritized in the prioritization step, we look to monitor the process for KPIs and see. So there is a culture of continuous improvement in the process.
So, can you just share one example, either from your professional life or something else, to kind of help people understand how the process optimization has taken place in real life?
So I will talk about a higher education example where the student fill in the forms because they are looking for financial aid. They send it to the financial aid officer in the form of emails. So the email templates are different. Sorry, the documents templates are different, and sometimes the financial aid officer they find it hard to understand the document since the templates are different and there are some inconsistency in the document. So what happens is the student tends to miss their deadlines because the financial aid officer takes time to process the document. So to optimize this, what we came up with, we tried to create a self-service portal where the student can directly fill in the details so that the financial aid officer can get it fast and check their data, and if there are any gaps, send it back to the student and they can fill it. So the process is little faster here. And so that made the financial aid for the student little faster, and so there were less redundancies and bottlenecks for the student, and that made the process optimized.
Okay, so now let's talk about the limitations of the traditional process optimization. What could be the problems because of which we are moving towards more human-centered approach?
Yeah, there are a few limitations in the traditional process optimization. First is um, the time, right? Users spend so much time on working on the process, but by the time we make our process optimize or map with the user requirement, the process get old and the user requirement has changed, right? Another thing is the narrow focus. When we create a process, we keep a smaller group of users in mind, and by the time it may work in the one team but it is not working in the other team, so we are keeping a small group, we are it is not working in the other team and it create bottleneck somewhere else. Then, if I talk about it, is we focus highly on the documentation part. We spend so much effort and time on the documentation without even thinking if it is actually making sense in the current process, because nobody is updating the process. They are just using the process as it is. Uh, then the adaptability thing, people are so used to of adapt a certain process in certain ways that they don't look to refine the processes because they think the processes are working fine, and which make it more stagnant. So these are the certain limitations and pitfalls which make us move towards a human centered process.
Okay, so before we get into the human-centered process optimization steps, can you give one example of where did you try this, and what happened in that case?
Sure. So, if I talk about the human centered example, I will talk about my recent online clothing business where we were seeing the size misfit issue. So, we saw a lot of returns and exchanges coming through, and we were surprised why. So, we saw that people are not able to refer to the size chart, or they have a fear of bad fit. So then we talked to the users, users, like why this issue is happening, or what is, what are their struggles when they order it online. So we found that they are not able to relate to the size chart with their body types is one. We after we are able to work on this, we went to the our cross functional team. We tried to dig in, we talked to them what we can provide, how we can solve this issue, and we came up with an idea of giving the pictures of different body types and giving them the historical data, like what sizes they were using before, and giving them recommendations based on that. So that helped. We created a prototype for that and we rolled out to a small group of users. So they started using the size chart with the body types and the recommendations, and that increased the sales and the return and exchange reduced to 30%. So here we saw that our process worked, and then we rolled out to a larger group.
Right. So that is basically keeping the people's kind of perspective into mind.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that there's no size misfit.
Right.
Okay. So this was a good example of human-centered process approach. So what are the steps? So if we really want to learn more about it in a more formal way, what are the steps of human-centered process optimization?
So we have talked like human-centered process. We keep a user in mind, right? We think about their needs, their pain points, and then work around them so we can deliver them a good product. So the first very important process of human-centered is, or the core element, if I'll talk about, is empathy. It is very important because we as a user we need to we need to understand the feelings of the user, even it's a frustration, even it's a pain point, even it's a feedback. And how we get it? We observe them. uh, we we look around, we talk to them, we observe them, and that's how we can refine or get the needs out of, which are the unsaid words or their feelings. So then comes the define. So here we try to convert the insights which we get it from empathy to the business goals, right? So after we have the business goal or we understood the pain points, then we move it to the ideate part, where we talk to the cross functional team so we can find the solution, diverse solution which can work for that issue. So after we have worked with the cross-functional team, we have the diverse solution, then we create a prototype based on the user needs. So we make a MVP and we roll it to a small set of users so they can use it and get a feedback, iterate and refine. And after we have made the changes based on the feedback, then we implement it to a larger group. And so that's how we get, it's a continuous process of improvement.
Just a follow-up question. So you talked about empathy and kind of talking to the users. So in a typical non-custom based software like products, how do you what kind of techniques we use to get the users' feedback in terms of what do exactly they want or what are their pain points?
Sure. So empathy we talked about, it's about getting understanding the user, their pain points and all. So one is by observing, talking to them, sometimes just sitting with them, next to them, and seeing how they are able to use the process, and are there any frustrations when they use a process, and what are the good points and the bad points. So just monitor them. So that also give you a good insight which any metrics or dashboard cannot give.
Correct. So, is design thinking also relevant in terms of human-centered process optimization?
So design thinking is also a very important part of human centered process, and it includes empathy, it includes the all the cycles which we talk about, right, in the human cycle. So it's an iterative non-linear process where we work in iterations. We start with empathy, we talk to the user, understand their needs. So after we have got the user need, we move to the define state, where we try to map the insight to business goal. And then after that we try to ideate that, understood, and try to work with the cross functional team so that we can find the diverse solution. And then create a prototype so that a small MVP can be rolled out to a smaller set of groups, and then we refine and iterate from there. Apart from that, we try to co-create or work with the collaborative team, work with the stakeholder, so that the team, the user and the stakeholder, we all feel aligned and on the same page.
Right. So, the human-centered approach, can we apply it in every scenario, or there are only specific set of scenarios where it can be used?
We Human centered approach works in most of the project, but there can be few projects where it does not work, right, or where there are certain limitations. First is, if I talk about, it is time consuming. Every stakeholder or every customer does not want to wait for the entire cycle because it is not time bound. It is an iterative process where we can go any time during the first phase and look for the user feedback, create a prototype, refine it, and again. So it's a non-linear circle. So every project cannot wait for so longer for the requirement to complete is one. If the project is time bound, then no. And then there are certain limitation regarding technology and can be regulatory. So there can be certain projects which are, you know technically we cannot apply, or there are some regulations. So that is one limitation in some project. And there can be a case where the stakeholder, they don't want to spend too much of time or invest the budget on the analysis part. They want the team to directly move into delivery. So these are certain places where we think there are limitations.
Okay, so looking ahead, okay, how do you see the future of human-centered process optimization?
So the future of human-centered process is going to be a blend of AI and empathy, where the AI will be, where the user will be at the core and the AI will be at the co-pilot. Not a replacement though, but for better user experiences. So we will see that the AI will help us help to summarize the user gaps, inefficiencies, which the the human or the team can, the BA can help to make the process little faster and effective. They can create a prototype faster based on the gatherings by the AI, and that will speeden up the process and can give the solutions fast.